You're listening to the Believe in Giants podcast with two-time Super Bowl winner Carl Banks and the voice of the Giants, Bob Papa.
And we welcome you to another edition of Believe in Giants. Bob Papa, two-time Super Bowl champion Carl Banks, presented by FanDuel. Giants will play their first preseason game on Saturday. If you're in the New York metropolitan area, check us out on NBC4 New York. But it's the Minnesota Vikings. And, Carl, it's an exciting time, right? Because they're evaluating these players on the field. Yesterday's practice, Wednesday, they played basically the last 10 minutes, twos versus twos, ones versus ones. Scoreboard tied at 17. Each team with 3 timeouts remaining. The twos got a 62-yard field goal from the Savada, and he knocked it through. But, man, Harbaugh is now going to get a chance to see everybody do it in game action, which is still different than practice.
Bob, what I really like about the way Coach Harbaugh is constructing the operation, if you will, the game situations, they're just not, okay, we're going to talk through these game situations and then we're going to kind of script, 3-5 plays at a time. It's like, okay, we're going to go until you get a 3 and out. We'll go until you get a turnover or we get a touchdown. And every scenario like this 10-minute period yesterday was overtime, correct?
No, it was it was the fourth quarter.
Okay, so fourth quarter, and he incorporates every phase of what would happen in a game, meaning punts, field goals. And the intensity of it was ones versus ones, twos versus twos, if I'm correct. So everything he does is about how the game of football is played. The teaching happens in the classroom. When you're off the field on the sideline is where you get your instruction. But man, they are really pouring into these guys a system of belief in themselves and in the system that they're running. And you could just tell the level of confidence that these young men are playing with. There's no complaining about, a 10-minute period or the intensity of practice. And I talk about this all the time because, these are the dog days of summer training camp. And when you have a coach who takes to the podium and says, yeah, they're starting to stack some days, the guys are pretty sore, that's a coach that's relating to them. It's not a coach, that's saying, yeah, we got them really sore. And, this is what he's talking in terms that they understand also. And you got to believe that if he's saying that on the mic, he's telling the guys too, hey, look, we're about to start it's going to be going to be some tough days here. Here are the expectations. We're stacking some of these practices and you're going to be sore or whatever. But it's just the way that he operates this team. It has every player really bought into it. And I don't see discouragement, right? And yes, this is the summer and folks say, yeah, everybody's undefeated. Yep, everybody's optimistic. But there's the way they're going about their business is going to bear fruit. I can just tell you that now. I don't know how many games that results in, but this is a different football team, different mindset.
Yeah, I talked to Coach Harbaugh yesterday after practice for our NBC4 TV show that'll air at noon on Saturday, an hour before the game. Then this year, for the first time, we have a half-hour pregame show, which is going to be fun. But I made the point to him, and I think you saw this when you were at the Greenbrier, and I saw it as well. The way he structures his practices, these grueling, mentally challenging, long periods are always the last thing of practice, whether it was goal line last week at the Greenbrier, put the ball on the 1 yard line. we want to run 14 plays. And I was talking to him about it, and I asked him about this in my interview with him yesterday, and he's like, yeah. He goes, it's all by design, because how do you perform when you're fatigued? How is your brain performing when it's been a grueling, hot 2.5-hour practice? And the most physically challenging part of it now is coming at the end. You know, do you let your mind wander because you're tired? Are you able to stay focused? Are you getting the calls right? You're getting your assignments right? And I find it really interesting, Carl, that if you any practice that you go to, when the way it's structured, it ends with a grueling long period where the players have to operate mentally and physically while fatigued.
Right. So, Bob, you know, we're coming up on the 40th anniversary of our Super Bowl, and there are a lot of highlights
ever in
out
Giants
there.
history.
Yes, there are a lot of highlights from that season. But if you notice, if you guys want to look at some of the games, when that fourth quarter hit, you'll see players put their four fingers up. Means it's time to stay locked in or to lock in. Like, we trained for the fourth quarter. This wasn't just a symbol, right? This was a signal to each other. Let's go. This fourth quarter. This is what we trained for. We're in condition for this. We will not dissipate. We're just going to get stronger. And that's what this is for the Giants under Harbaugh in these drills, is to get them in this mindset right here. So when the fourth quarter hits, you know you're going to be stronger than your opponent. You're going to be mentally tougher. And it builds not only physical endurance, but it also builds mental endurance.
Carl, as we get ready for this game, and he, as of this recording, and we're recording this on Thursday, he has not announced who is going to play, who's not going to play. As far as the starters are concerned, we know Odell Beckham Jr. is definitely playing in the game, as an example. When he was asked by the media yesterday, he's like, it's a good question. He goes, but I'm going to have to dodge that question. I'm sure they have an idea what they're going to do. And maybe by the time this podcast is released or later tonight, he will make some kind of declaration to the media. But, you know, Adebo's been a little banged up. Phillips got nicked up last week. Newsome wasn't out there yesterday. So, like, these are going to be some valuable reps for Deonte Banks and rookie Colton Hood at the cornerback spot. And then the way they're utilizing the safeties with Adarius Washington and Pinnock's getting spins with the ones. And then they have this 3 safety package. I don't know if Holland's going to play. I don't know if Nubin's going to play. I don't know who or isn't playing. But they certainly have a lot of bodies that have shown things in camp that would have you excited about some of these battles that are going to unfold on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, we went from not having an idea of what this Giants secondary would look like coming into this training camp. Like, they don't have talent, they don't have this. And all of a sudden, you're starting to see guys that, like, Tyler Nubin is showing to be the guy that they drafted him to be. We talk about Deonte Banks, and, you know, it was just like a lost cause, people thought. Like, his confidence level is matching his play on each and every down out there. And he's beaming with confidence. He was trash talking with Darnell Wilson. I think it was Tuesday, and it was fun to watch, you know, because he's in a place now, and he and Coach Wilson were jawing back and forth in practice a little bit, and, you know, Deonte said, nobody's beat me over the top. Nobody's going to beat me over the top. And Coach Wilson reminded him of something. He's like, nah, he didn't beat me over the top. Like, so these are things where if we sat in these chairs in March or April, you wouldn't know that that's the guy that's showing up at camp. The way that Tyler Nubin is competing in playing with a different level of confidence and comfort, we wouldn't have been saying that in March, because all we knew was like, oh, they made a mistake. People were saying with Nubin, and why does he take bad angles and this, that, and the other. And let me just tell you something about that. And I don't think Coach Wilson will mind me sharing this part of our conversation. And I actually brought it up. He did not. But he says, I said, Coach, I just love the way, your players are playing with confidence. He says, yeah, they believe in each other. He says, we poured into them so that they could believe in themselves and believe in each other. And I said this, he did not. I said, you could tell that a lot of guys just needed to know what to do and how to do it and to believe in a system. And he looked at me and he says, we're pouring into these guys so that they can believe in themselves, each other, and this system. So that means that there's time being spent understanding the players. It's not, and I always this play just burns in my brain, was the Denver play with Drew Phillips standing right next to a receiver as a freaking, make a play ball comes from the quarterback, and he's standing there and doesn't even see it, doesn't know. And I'm just like, he's there. Why didn't he turn? And I'm saying, at that moment, this is not good coaching, right? He knows the area he was supposed to be in, but he didn't play man or ball. He just dropped to a spot, right? That's not teaching. That's not pouring into your players. And that's different. It's different now. They coach them every play. And I just, I can't say enough of like the guys that are playing with confidence. And Bob, it may not result in starting positions, but it did created a competition. It's created conversation about, well, this guy ain't as bad as he was last year, or he's not as bad in this system. And that's a plus, because that's why they drafted him, right? They drafted these kids high, and to see a player like Tyler Nubin just playing with confidence, he's moving with comfort, right? There's no hesitation. He's decisive. And with Deonte Banks is just so locked in, and he's trash talking his coach, and they're having a little back and forth. And that wasn't the guy last year. It wasn't. And no. It's just a delight to see. And I hope fans allow themselves to receive what they're seeing from these players, because you complained, we all did, complain about some of these performances. And now that we're seeing different, I mean, we can still nitpick it, because when I talk about Deonte Banks, people are like, well, is he catching the ball? Can he high point the ball? He's doing a lot more. That would be the least of our concerns if he had a pass breakup versus an interception, because last year he wasn't nowhere near any of that, right?
No. And the unnecessary grabbing.
Right.
Like, let's see what he does in the game, because a lot of times he's got great coverage, and he's yanking.
Right. And he's doing none of that. So it's good to see what a difference coaching makes. And the fact that what many thought would be throwaway players when a new coach came in and, he's not going to tolerate X, Y, and Z. Well, they're not tolerating it. They're actually teaching these players at a level that they can believe in themselves and believe in what they're being taught, right? And that's big difference in how players play. And, if you don't get better in this system, under this regime, ain't nobody fault but your own, because it won't be for lack of teaching and for lack of understanding. They are really putting a lot into it.
Yeah, and I think to follow up on your point and reaffirm it is that there were certain guys that played decent, played well. I mean, Banks is an example under Wink. Shane Bowen, in the 2 years there, the defense really was not good. They didn't play well under the coaching staff. And then they changed some coaches last year in the secondary, didn't change anything. And now we're watching guys suddenly improve in front of our eyes because of this staff that Harbaugh's put together. We're for certain players now, there's no more excuses at this point, right? Because you could default to some of the coaching because there was things that you watched last year that other people outside of this building, this organization, analysts that were out there, guys that do games for network, watching the Giants on defense and saying, not really figuring out, I can't really understand what they're doing. Or it's a lot of things we got. A former NFL head coach that we visited with last year basically said it. It's pretty darn vanilla. Like it ain't hard to figure it out. Well, that's all gone now. So now it's the players are empowered now to use their skill sets, and whoever sinks, and whoever swims.
Right. But it won't be for lack of coaching. It won't be for lack of effort by a staff to get them to be their best, whatever that is, right? You're getting every player's best, and that's why the competitions look like they do. That's why you see rotations in the defensive secondary at the safety position. You see these rotations at the cornerback position. We thought cornerback would be an issue. Now, they haven't played against anybody, but I can tell you the competition that we're seeing in every guy that steps in there, whether he's ones or twos, he's up one practice, down to twos the next practice, they're competing like they're number ones or like they want to be number ones. And so it's good to see. And those things that we're experiencing will pay dividends. I don't know how many wins it is, but the conditioning of your players mentally to be a fourth quarter team is important. And let me just say this too, Bob. It's important to Coach Harbaugh as well. Like, that's the only thing people scream at him about. Oh, well, he's given up some fourth quarter leads and he leads the league in, over a period of time and blown fourth quarter leads. Well, he's got a hell of a winning percentage. So he ain't blowing them at a clip that the Giants blew him last year. Let's just put it that way.
No.
But the more you get your guys conditioned mentally to stay sharp, to not drift off in key moments, that's the mental endurance of this game. As things go on, and let's just say if your ball's moving down the field and all of a sudden one of the key areas is the red area, like you're going against a team that gives you a lot of different looks in the red area. And you're playing and they're driving the ball, and now you hit the red area and you blow an assignment because you just forgot it, or you were just tired and didn't pay attention to a motion or a shift, and all of a sudden you turn a guy loose. This is what those 10-minute periods are for. That's why he says you see these, even at Greenbrier, they had these coming out drills where the defense was ahead. So the defense had to protect the lead, right? It could be 4, it could be 7, right? And so offense knew what they had to do coming out, defense knew what they had to do coming out. So he's creating these scenarios that will condition these guys mentally to compete for as long as it matters.
All right, I want to dive into some of the battles that I'm looking forward to watching on Saturday on the offensive side of the ball. But Carl, having flown in yesterday, I had to fly to LaGuardia. Then I had to take an Uber to get my rental car at Newark. And I had two great guys, like two really cool Uber drivers that were like really attentive to make my experience good. Now, like, it doesn't seem like a lot, but the positive impression, I gave them the 5 stars, but like they were above and beyond what they needed to do. And it's all part of like the extra effort, right? And that's what we're kind of seeing in this Giants training camp, right? Like there's a lot of extra effort. There's a lot of people in the support staff. The support staff has grown. I feel like everybody has these cool defined roles. But shifting to the offensive side of the ball, I'm fascinated by this receiver room because Neighbors is going to be on the team. We know Slayton's got a contract that you really don't want to start dealing with dead money. So he's going to be around. But then, you look at Darnell Mooney, who has been outstanding. And he talked the other day about how last year he dealt with an injury in camp, came back, then dealt with another injury. They had their quarterback uncertainty. He's fresh and he's himself. So Mooney is fired up about the way his body feels, and he has an understanding of this offense because he was with Nagy. Calvin Austin, he's a pro's pro. Now it starts to get murky, right? Where does Odell Beckham Jr. fit in this? He's going to play on Saturday. Harbaugh said he's playing. He's got to earn a spot on this team. Juju's been dealing with some swelling in the knee. But then you have Ryan Miller, Dalen Cambry, Cambry made some really big-time catches yesterday, like on third downs and stuff. And then you have a veteran guy, Braxton Berrios. Hyatt hasn't been practicing. He's banged up a little bit, which I think is really a shame because he was putting his best foot forward so far in camp. And I love the way he was attacking the football and making contested catches over the middle in traffic. Wasn't just the go ball to him. So I'm really interested to watch this wide receiver room and how these guys perform against, albeit it'll be a vanilla version of a Brian Flores defense, I'm assuming. But it's kind of that's a battle I'm really looking forward to seeing.
Well, and then you didn't even mention Malachi Fields.
Fields, right. Who had a really nice catch yesterday.
He's got some drops too, but he is obviously going to be on this roster. A guy like Isaiah Hodgins has just got to get it on tape so that his career can continue. I don't know if the room will have him as a 53 or if he's a down and up guy, meaning practice squad and up, if they can get him.
I think barring injury, Carl, it's hard to see Hodgins on the 53.
Right. But it's for him, he continues to prove consistency and consistently that he's an NFL player. So he's the guy you want to keep on your roster if you can find room because he plays special teams also. But you got to find room for it. You got to figure out if he's a guy that can be a practice squad player. He always finds himself on the roster, and he found himself back with the Giants last year at the end of the year. But it also comes down to making sure that you're not just auditioning for the Giants when you're in those positions. Even a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster. Right. He's, like I said, he's not looking awful, but the competition is so great. He's not standing out. He's not standing out like, oh, that's Juju. He made a catch. The one thing about, and yes, I am biased, folks, if you didn't know, but the one thing about Odell Beckham, he flashes every practice. He's open. He's either overthrown, he makes a catch, but he flashes. Juju hasn't flashed yet. When you have a guy like Dylan Cambray, like you said, that's making plays, he's flashing, right? That's what's catching the attention in that room. Brand equity just doesn't matter as much when you have kids that are flashing, right? And then they start to stack those moments. You're not, the name Juju Smith-Schuster meant something, but you got to make it mean something now. And like I said, he's not having a horrible camp, but he's just not. I mean, he and Odell are guys that got to make a team. They have to make the team. There's no, like I said, the brand equity doesn't matter. You're just two guys, names that have had success in the league at a high level, but it's a crowded room. You have an opportunity, and you've got to make sure that you flash, that remind people of who you are. And you got these young players that are stacking moments. So these are guys that these coaches are saying, we got to find a way to keep him, or we got to find a way to keep him. Or Juju he's got to flash. And I don't know, maybe it's going to be in this preseason game where he reminds people of who he is. And like I say, he's not having a bad camp, but I haven't seen those moments from him.
Well, yeah. And you mentioned about Hodgins, even though I don't think he'll make the 53, but Neighbors is not going to give you anything on special teams. For a fair catch situation, you might throw Slayton back there to catch a punt, but he's not really on specials. You know that Austin can return punts, so that gives him value. They were working on Hyatt as far as doubling up the gunner and stuff like that. So Hyatt's gotten a lot of reps at special teams, but again, he's not healthy right now. Fields is still learning. And then Cambry and Berrios they can play all kinds of special teams for you, whether it's returning punts, coverage teams, whatever. So yeah, when you look at Odell and you look at Juju as an example, and some of this is going to be a function on potential injuries that could happen at other position groups, could affect the numbers. But, you're probably going to have, for one of those guys to make the team, right, you're going to now have 3 wide receivers on your team, Neighbors, Slayton, and potentially Odell, who really don't do anything on specials. So,
however, Odell can play specials. He can return.
He could return.
He can return both punts and kicks. So he does have that in his arsenal. So I don't know if they would ask him to do it, but he can do it.
The O-line, Carl, watching these practices, the one thing that has caught my attention is how they've increased the depth along the offensive line. They're not all going to make it, right? Like, are you going to keep 9? Are you going to keep 10? Depending on injury. Hudson's getting a lot of turns at center because John Michael Schmitz is banged up. The other center is banged up a little bit. But, between Kubas and Stinney and the mountain man, Falalele, when he gets it, I'm watching yesterday in these live drills, and especially when they were running the twists, when he gets his hands on somebody, it's like end of ball game.
Yeah.
And then Azudu's getting his opportunities. I don't know if there's going to be room at the end for him. And just watching
Marcus
it realistically, Marcus Bowe is going to have a spot on this team.
Yeah.
Watching Evan Neal, like, some reps are good, some reps are not good. It's hard to see where he's going to factor in on this 53-man roster, if at all. But they got a chance on Saturday afternoon to put a foot forward and try to erase maybe some of the bad reps that they had. But they have a really cool battle going on the offensive line.
Well, here's the unique part of this, and I'm noticing this trend with Coach Harbaugh. There are absolutes at positions. Have we heard him talk about, well, we're going to train him, we're going to cross-train him, and he's going to get some reps here, some reps there. Now, maybe they are doing that, but guys are slotted at positions. And it's not like, well, we're going to try Bo at guard, and, this week with this practice, we're going to see how he does it. These, you got to perform at your given position. And then maybe later on, they may be having conversations about, a guy who could be your Swiss Army knife. But right now, these guys are slotted, and they're absolute positions that they've got to learn and they've got to execute at that position.
So with the quarterback situation, Carl, again, as of this recording, the head coach has not made a determination on what starters are going to play, if any, however he's going to handle it. And again, he dodged the question yesterday, and he said that to the media. He goes, it's a good question, but I'm going to dodge it right now. At some point, they're going to make a decision, and they're going to talk to the media about it, what they're going to do. I hope Dart plays. I hope we see him in this offense because it's a new offense. It's really a collaborative effort with Nagy, Greg Roman, Brian Callahan, what they bring to the table, what Coach Kelly, who was the interim play caller last year, what he brings to the table. We know one thing about this combined offense, or as Jameis called it yesterday, it's gumbo. The run game is going to be the central figure in all of it. Right. And how they run block.
Right. Yeah.
But I hope Dart plays.
Well, you probably want to see that from him. And again, I was talking to Coach Wiest, and just the impact of those three minds on the offense. And he thought it was great that Greg Roman was part of this staff because Roman had Kaepernick, right? He had Lamar Jackson. So he understands that level of athlete or mobility. And then you have Nagy, who can help them focus on the run game. So, I mean, you would think, it's too many cooks in the kitchen, but they're actually given particular areas to develop on the team. And I think it's going to work out good. I mean, obviously, Greg Roman has been in this league a long time. He's had a lot of success running the football and passing the football, but also curating an offense around a talent that's mobile at quarterback.
Carl, you got anything else? I'm looking forward to the game. I'm looking for the telecast with you and Phil and Howard. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's always fun. I love working next to Phil Simms because he makes you smarter every time. We just have these conversations during production meetings and then even on air, and you just get so much smarter because he sees the game as a quarterback from both sides of the football, and it's just he'll bring up things and you'll be like, okay, I missed that one. I didn't see that one. He's just so good
exactly. At it. All right, so we'll be back next week. We'll get a little recap in, and then the Giants have joint practice with the Dolphins next Thursday down in Florida. It'll be nice and steamy. If they thought that it was humid outside here at East Rutherford yesterday, and it was humid, wait until they get a taste of that little South Florida humidity next Thursday. Yeah. All right, so how do we like to end this thing?
Tell a friend to tell a friend. Believe in Giants.
Believe in Giants.